We are gathering for class number 3, Disaster Prep Series. We are talking about drinking water, and I have some really interesting updated guidance to give you. I find this very fascinating. This is kind of new to me. This is the second time I've taught this. Welcome to class. Seattle Prepares is my email, and as always, I'm glad you're here. So, we're going to talk about water. Where do we get our water? And I think I went over this last week. So, 30% of it is up in the Tolt River watershed. The other 70% is down here, kind of southeast of us, in the Cedar River watershed. So this is all traveling by pipes. It's a very long distance. And those pipes are very, very old. When the earth shakes, pipes break. And that is all of the pipes in the ground. That is water pipes and then the sewer and the gas pipes. So we're going to talk about water tonight and then sewer and gas next week. Priorities after an earthquake. And you'll hear me say this more than once, so you don't have to memorize it now, but try to get this in your head. After the shaking stops, your job is to check on people and pets around you. Make sure everybody's okay. The next thing you're going to do is manage your utilities, and that's your gas and your electricity. And we'll talk about that next week. The third thing you do, and this is what's different, the third thing you do is to collect drinking water if possible. So we'll go through why that makes sense and how that works. This graphic was used in a class I did with Eric Autry, who works for Seattle Public Utilities. He is part of their emergency management division, lots of experience with the utility company. And he's the first one that explained to me kind of the nuanced message that I'm trying to convey here about collecting water after an earthquake. So this graphic is one that he did. The next couple videos you'll see are taken out of that class I did with him, and I'll provide you with that link if you want to watch the whole thing. It's a lot of history of the water system, which is very interesting, but the meat of it, the last 10-ish minutes, where we really kind of wrap up what to do after an earthquake and how to capture as much water as you can for your household to drink. So the picture you're looking at on the screen right now is a really simplified version of our water system. The blue area over to the left is kind of our watersheds, and it feeds the water towers, which you can see there. The graphic also shows these households on hills because Eric's really trying to impress upon you the fact that gravity plays a huge role in our water system and who might have water after a break in the distribution lines. So watch the videos, and then I would encourage you to go back and watch the entire class if you'd like to.
So this is an oversimplified drawing of the water system. We have the reservoir up in the mountains, this pipe coming into town. The reservoir is at a higher elevation than this water tower. That water tower provides consistent water pressure to the homes and businesses below it, to the neighborhood, through the distribution system. So when the system springs a leak, what we're looking at is, can the closest tank keep up with that leak? If we have an earthquake and we're springing a bunch of leaks, maybe not, right? Or if the pipe that is supplying the town breaks, the amount of water we have is what's left in the local reservoir. So once these people use this water, we're out of water.
Won't there be pipes between the houses and they're gonna all break, and so they're gonna be flooding all over between the houses?
They're not all going to break. Some will. Some can. I will say that the pipes between your house and the city system typically are copper. Copper is a pretty flexible pipe, or they could be a plastic pipe. Those are a little bit more flexible, but that being said, it's probably been in the ground for a while and it could break. In this scenario, the people who are going to run out of water first are the people at the top of the hill. Does that make sense? Because it's a gravity system. So they're going to run out of water. There's still going to be residual head pressure in this pipe until it completely drains out. And the people who are going to run out of water last are these people at the bottom of the hill. And that rings true for the city right now. We had a water main break in West Seattle. I think it was last year. It was pretty significant. And in that zone, folks at the top of the hill were running out of water while the people that were right next to the water main break did not run out of water. We maintain the system in a positive pressure all the time. That positive pressure keeps the water coming to your house. It also ensures that it's clean. When the system fails, like we have in this, close up, it creates negative pressure. I've been working on fixing a water main break, and the water started to get warm because of the negative pressure that was forming in the system, and hot water tanks were starting to drain into the pipe I was working on. Okay, we had the big earthquake. You're safe, and you still have water pressure. I think at that point, and you probably haven't heard this before, this is advice from SPU, use that opportunity to collect the water you can. You can't just do this on a whim. You're not going to fill up your bathtub and have safe drinking water. You wash your body in your bathtub. There are tanks that you can buy that are BPA free, and you can collect water and it seals it off from the environment. In your bathroom, fill up buckets, fill up food grade water containers. My advice, collect what you can while you can.
That's the guidance. Collect what you can while you can. We don't know what buildings will have water flowing to them. It depends on where the break is, how big the breaks are, whether you're uphill or downhill. It's very, very subjective. So the guidance is collect the water that you can while you can. And then as soon as it stops running to your building, shut off water to your building. Shutting off water to your building will prevent your hot water tank from draining out of your building, because you really want to keep that hot water tank full. You want that water to be accessible to you and your family and whoever to drink. Don't panic here. I've got all of the things I'm showing you, all these, I don't want to say gadgets, that's the wrong word, all these tools. I'm sending you a link as soon as class is over with. So this is that bathtub thing. It's called a bathtub liner. I don't personally have a bathtub in this apartment I'm in. This is a 100-gallon heavy duty food grade plastic bag. It's really large. It's like a mattress kind of. You can only see part of it. But basically you fill that up. It's collapsed down, so it's not going to take up much room if you're storing it and you're not using it. But when you fill it up, it's really large, and they come in different sizes. Stock pots are really good. Coolers, this is a food grade container. So collect what you can while you can, then shut off the water valve to your building. These are some of the water shutoff valves I have come across. This one happened to be in my old home. I put a tag on it that says water turn off after earthquake. If I still lived there, I would go back and change this guidance, and I would say something along the lines of, after an earthquake, collect the water that you can while you can, and then turn off this valve. So this is what you might see in your building. One of the things on your homework list is to find that valve, figure out how it works, educate everybody in your household, and talk about when to turn it off. So you're going to have to take what you're learning here and pass it on to other people in your household. Turn it off in your building first, and then as a safeguard, or if heaven forbid you can't get to the one in your building, then think about turning it off outside of your building. So here's theoretically the one inside your building. The one outside your building is going to be out closer to the street. It might look like that. It might look like that. On the inside, once you get rid of the spiders and the dirt and the leaves, this is probably what you're going to see. This is the water meter. So this is kind of how it keeps track of how much water you're using. And this is the valve that you're going to turn off. Right now, the valve is running in line with the pipe, which means that the water is flowing. What you do is you use a tool like this. I think it's called a T-bar. I forget exactly. Some kind of tool to take that valve and turn it across the pipe. And that stops the water flowing. And then between these two, definitely turn it off in your building first, because you could turn it off here out in the street, but there might be a crack in this pipe, which is not going to help you keep the water in your hot water tank. And that's really why you're turning this water off, is to keep your hot water tank from draining out into the street and losing that valuable water. If you're filling up containers and the water stops running, stop what you're doing and go find that valve and shut it off. One of the things you're going to get tonight with your homework is directions to print out how to get water out of your hot water tank. Print those directions and then tape it to your hot water tank. You don't need to learn how to do it. You just need the directions available if you ever need it. I'm going to impress upon you how much You do not want to rely on anybody else for water. This is Seattle Public Utilities, their priorities. This is not a secret. This is what they tell us. Their priority after an earthquake is fighting fires. They have to get fires under control. Fires are very common after earthquakes because of breaks in the natural gas lines. Their next priority is essential facilities like hospitals, like emergency response centers. And then they think about other city facilities and essential businesses. Anybody that needs to be up and running to help us in this recovery process, we're going to make sure they have the water they need. And then emergency drinking water. They are not going to single family homes first. They are going to the densely populated areas. And then they're going to move out to the less densely populated neighborhoods. They will work really hard to restore the water system, but we are not top on the list. Fighting fires is. Some frequently asked questions: how much water should you put aside? 1 gallon per person per day for 2 weeks. So 14 gallons per person. If you have the ability to put away that kind of bottled water, that would be fabulous. Here's a chart. It'll be up on the screen for a little bit to figure out how much water your household ideally would have in bottled water. How am I supposed to store that much water? Tuck it wherever you can and work with neighbors. Maybe you can store water in their shed, in their basement. Maybe there's a closet in your apartment complex or your condo that you could take over and store with water. Can I drink water from streams, rivers, ponds, lakes, or mysterious springs? Not in an urban setting. All have a high potential to be contaminated from industrial waste or a sewer leak. It's really hard to make this water safe to drink. You can do this out in the wild. You cannot do this in an urban setting after an earthquake. We just have too many chemicals that are going to get into our water system. What about if you have a swimming pool or a hot tub or a spa? If that water didn't get contaminated, like something fell into it or flood or storm water went into it, you can use it for personal hygiene and cleaning, not for drinking. It has too many chemicals in it. It's really, really difficult to make clean enough to drink. So other sources of water, we've talked about the hot water tanks. The arrows are here because I would like for you to take a look at your hot water tank and just make sure that it's secured correctly. Most contractors are really good about this. We've had these rules for a while, but this stuff right here is called plumber's tape. It is not meant to strap down a hot water tank. So if that's what you have, get it replaced with a stronger strap. Another source, and it's not much, but it's some. Any toilet in your house, the water in the tank, not the bowl, can't do anything with this water. It's going to make you deathly sick. But the water in the tank can be used. But do not use any kind of chemical. Don't put anything in this tank like the blue deodorizing, whatever they are, toilet bomb things, because then you've screwed that water. You can't use that for anything. It's got crazy chemicals in it. Think twice about putting something in the tank of your toilet. When you buy bottled water, you have options. You have this kind of milky plastic and then this clear plastic. I think the clear plastic, I haven't seen this in writing, but I think this is sturdier. It seems like this would hold up a little bit better over time. I love this packaging. I bought multiple packs of this when I had a basement and I had a place to store it, all sealed together like that. It's heavy as heck, but it's not going to bounce around in my basement. That's why I was so tickled with that. Let's talk about bleach. Bleach is used to kill bacteria and viruses in water. I think having household bleach on hand is always a really good idea. Make sure it says disinfecting bleach. Once you start looking for this word, you will realize it's not as common as you think. If it doesn't say disinfecting bleach, do not use it to disinfect water. Bleach loses potency in about 6 months, so buy it in reasonable quantities for your household. Maybe you go through a gallon of bleach every 6 months. Maybe this is a more reasonable size. Don't buy a gallon of bleach and have it sitting in your cupboard for 3 years. Weirdly, I read this somewhere. They make bleach stronger in the summer than they do in the winter because it loses potency in the heat. And then do not buy scented or splashless bleach if you intend to use it for disinfecting. Make sure you're buying something that says disinfecting, buy it in a reasonable quantity, and avoid scented or splashless bleaches. Concentrated is okay. This one down here says concentrated. This will kill. You just use less of the concentrated than you do the regular bleach when you disinfect water. This picture of the hot water tank, it's really helpful because the outlet where the water's going to come out is way down here at the bottom. It's going to be difficult to get a bowl underneath that little spout way down there. So consider a short hose. You could use a washing machine hose. Those are typically pretty small. I also am giving you a link to a short drinking water hose. So this isn't lined with anything weird, if that's something you're concerned about. So you may want to think about buying that, throwing it on top of your hot water tank or taping it to the side. And then I also gave you guidance if you're lucky enough to have some kind of massive storage area. This is a 55-gallon food grade barrel. You can fill that, and I gave you directions on how to do it. You can fill it once, and I think it's good for 5 years if you add this special chemical. Just giving you lots of options. If you need to purify water, and this is something that Eric said from Seattle Public Utilities. What he said was immediately after the earthquake, the water in the system is still good. But as soon as they start fixing as much as they can and start sending water to homes and businesses, that water is not going to be clean. It'll be water, but it's not going to be tested. It's not going to have chemicals added to it. It's not going to be safe to drink. So they're going to say, city officials are going to say, water is now running to your buildings, but you need to make it clean enough to drink. So we're going to talk through stuff to think about. And here's the caveat, I am not a chemist. I am giving you what I've learned, but I am not the expert. So take all of this with a grain of salt, do your own research. This is the stuff we're trying to get rid of. These 5 categories: algae, protozoa, bacteria, chemicals, and viruses. And they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller as you go from left to right. So we need to figure out how to filter out or get rid of those things. So luckily, it's not really hard to filter out algae or protozoa or even bacteria. You can filter out bacteria, or you could use a disinfectant like bleach. Chemicals. This is where we run into troubles, especially in an urban situation, because we are going to have chemicals in our water system and it's really difficult to get rid of them. You may have petroleum products, you may have lead, you may have insecticides or pesticides. Maybe not the water that they're sending to us through the pipes, but if you're walking down to Green Lake or Lake Washington or anything else, water is going to have so much of this stuff in there. I'm not sure you can actually get rid of all of it. There is a way to filter out some or hopefully most of the chemicals if you're really desperate and you're trying to purify water that has chemicals in it. And that's to use charcoal. That's the only thing I stumbled across that might take out most of those chemicals is charcoal. And then the last one is you need a disinfectant. And we all learned this during COVID. COVID is a virus. You can't filter it out of water. It's too darn small, but bleach works really well. So does iodine. So does chlorine dioxide. I think that's the other kind of common chemical. So that's how you treat these 5 things that we worry about in our water system. My recommendation, and again, I'm not a chemist, but you want all of this. You want the ability to filter as small as you can, which is right there. You can get rid of those first 3 ones using a filter. You definitely want charcoal in whatever system you're using. And then you're going to follow up with a disinfectant to get rid of viruses and any bacteria that wasn't filtered out. I know this is a lot of information. I'm just showing you what I bought for my family. It'll be in the notes after this class. If you're going to do your own research, this is what you want to think about. You want a gravity bag. This isn't the system I have, but this is a good example. So you're going to put the water you're going to treat in a container, and you're going to make gravity work for you. And it's going to go through all this tubing, and then here's your filter, and here's where you collect it. You don't want to have to push this water through a filter. You definitely don't want to have to suck this water through the filter, which is what Life Straws have you do. A life straw is a really great tool if you're out in the middle of nowhere. If you're up on Mount Rainier and there's fresh running water, absolutely lay on your belly, stick that straw in the running stream, and drink to your heart's content. This thing will pull out the bacteria that is running from whatever animals or whatever are upstream. This is a great idea. But as far as providing water for your home, for your household members to cook with or brush their teeth with, this is not going to cut it. This is the gravity bag I have for my family. It hangs up on a tree. Here's your tube. And then this is how small of a filter you want. This is the smallest I could find. It's going to get rid of those protozoa and bacteria. You want the carbon element to it. This is the one I bought for my family. This is your filter that pulls out those bacteria and protozoa. And this little add-on is the charcoal. So it goes together in one long filter. You don't have to use them both. Maybe you're in a setting where you don't need to pull out chemicals. But if you do, you hook them both together, and that's how you filter your water. And then follow it all up with bleach or iodine or any other chemical that disinfects water, and that'll kill off the rest of the bacteria and any viruses that are running around. What if you have a tankless water heater? I don't know how much water is sitting in that tankless system. Maybe you can drain out half a gallon or something like that. I don't know. If I get a chance, I might do some research just to provide some information. But off the top of my head, I really don't know how you'd even get the water out of there. How much water might we expect to be able to collect? No idea. Depends on how many breaks there are, how far up that hill you are. Do you need that tool specifically to turn off the water at the street, or can you do it by hand? My understanding is a tool is very, very useful. I've seen somebody use a wrench with a screwdriver through the handle to provide that torque on the wrench. Go find that thing out in your street, wear some gloves, clear out that muck, figure out what that valve looks like, find the tool that works for you, and then put it someplace smart. And this is on your homework, and educate everybody in your household. I have seen other organizations say the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, says water that is put into the bottle the way the company said it was, there is no expiration date. I can't find that on the FDA website. For my household, I bought water when we first bought our house. It was there 9 years later when we left. I bought it, I put it away, I never thought about it again. That was my strategy. If you're not comfortable with that, replace it every 2 years, every 5 years, every 7 years, whatever you want. My understanding is it does not expire. How much bleach disinfects a gallon? Again, I'm going to send you a page from the Environmental Protection Agency that tells you how many drops. You don't need to know it. You just need to print it out, tape it up on your hot water tank so it's there when you need it. You can go to restaurants and get food grade buckets that they're just going to throw away. I used to go to a bar and I would get ones that had pickles in them. They stunk like pickle juice, but I cleaned them really well. I would use bleach and then I'd rinse it out, and then I'd use baking soda water and rinse it out. And I've used those buckets before. Don't forget your homework. It's at the bottom of the sheet that I sent you. And also next week, we're going to be talking about utilities, the other utilities besides water. Be talking about gas and electricity and what to do after an earthquake or some other large power outage. And then we're also going to be talking about sanitation. So how to handle the pee and poo that we all produce when the sewer systems aren't working. So I will see you next week. Thank you.